Okay. Good morning and welcome all. Thank you for coming. Right. We shall begin what is, my God, year number 9.
Wow.
I know. And it might be the final one, but 9 is a nice number for completion.
Oh, come on.
So, but we were saying we might do a final sort of 10-year, because 10 is a really nice number as well, so we might do a final 10-year one.
11 is the best number.
No, 12.
25. Come on.
Well,
Just
Oprah,
200.
Oprah did do 25, so that's a nice number as well. And so it's the Mind, Body, Spirit Energy Fest, and really what this is about, and when I was kind of walking through town on my little wild goose chase just now, I was actually thinking about the fact that all the people that aren't here, and I was thinking, well, so-and-so's traveling, they're doing this and they're doing that, and then I realised they're doing a lot of the things that they talked about on the Mind, Body, Spirit Energy Fest, and they're now off doing them, which is really nice. And then I was thinking about the second time we ran it, I was a bit upset that Amana couldn't make it, but the reason she couldn't make it is she's living in Saudi Arabia, which is the goal that she'd set when she sat where you were sitting.
Oh, wow.
And so she couldn't make it back for the second year or the third year.
Should I book my flight now?
But that was one of her completely random statements. So she said, I think I want to go and live and teach and work in Saudi or Dubai. And within 6 months she was gone. And then she couldn't come back in the little interim because another of her goals was to live in Atlanta with her children. And no surprises and no prizes for guessing where she is now. She's in Atlanta with her children. And so there are a number of people, and I looked at where they are and what they're doing, like, oh, they're not here because ... which actually is very, very cool. Good morning, you are in perfect time. Looking fabulous as always. And so yeah, it's a really kind of, it's an interesting one, and we're going to talk about a number of themes today. One of the themes is about persistence, which was one of my lessons this morning, in terms of I started, I shall continue now. And one of the themes is about adversity. It's about joining the dots. It's about when things appear to go wrong and looking for the silver linings. So in that tiny little segment, in those first 23 minutes of today, I lived all of those as I was walking through town. And as I was walking, I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to talk about this. Oh my God, I'm going to talk about this. Oh my God, I'm going to talk about this. And I'm laughing, going, you need to chill and just get a grip and actually listen to what you're going to say when you do the presentation today, because it was all of those things rolled into one little incident. So we're going to begin. Now you've got your 2 facilitators for today. There's myself, Marilyn Devonish, for those of you I haven't met yet, but really I think I know all of you by now. And I will do some introductions. We've got a couple of new people as well. And we have Gina Bat, our resident clairvoyant and psychic. And as you all know, there are going to be some readings, etc. We'll do some things over lunch as well when we're doing the kind of lunch segment. And it's going to be another incredible, fantastic, amazing, wonderful day. I already know that bit, but it's just about, okay, what is going to unfold? And so one of the things I'm going to be asking you to think about as we go through today is, the way I'm going to put it, it's not necessarily on the slides, but I'm going to be asking you, what is your highest intention in terms of what would you absolutely love to have happen as a result of this? So like Amani said, oh yeah, I think I want to live and work in Saudi and Dubai, or Keith saying, yeah, I want to meet, experience really deep transformational love. I don't know if any of you were here on that, would have been the second year, wouldn't it? Amani couldn't make it, but Keith came back with his girlfriend. Yeah. So, just it might be something that you consider to be really big. I remember a couple of years ago meeting someone, we'll talk about it a bit when we whiz through the testimonials, but I remember we were just chatting, and they said, oh yeah, I'm travelling quite a lot now that I'm mortgage free. And as he said it, I was like, oh my God, that's the goal that he set when he first did MBS. So there's been some really, really fantastic things. So get your thinking caps on as we go through. And I almost feel like I've come full circle. This workshop started as a result of, in 2011, waking up in the November. I'd had a really bad year. The Queen once talked about Annus Horribilis. It was that times like 100. And I was like, I cannot face another year like this. And so I was sitting and thinking, okay, what am I going to do about it? And the voice in my head said, you need to work on your mind, your body, your spirit, and your soul. I was like, no problem, I can do that. And then it went, I know you can do that, you're brilliant, but how about getting other people to work with you? And then I just started thinking, well, I can't be the only one who's experiencing this. And that was within the space of 3 weeks. They'd come up with the idea, put it out into the world, and I think we had 32 people come and join us for that first one. In terms of, I can't be the only one who wants to work on those. And I actually feel similar this year. Nothing like 2011, but it had its fair share of ups and downs. So a few people nodding. And so it's been a little bit like that. So it's like, okay, what's required? And one of the things that's really interesting, I mean, those of you who know me well, you know I'm a little bit last minute when it comes to writing my presentations and coming up with stuff, but it just then hits me like a bolt of lightning. And then once I've done it, I'm like, I'm done now. I know exactly what I'm doing. We're set. With this particular workshop, I'd say this is probably the first time in about, so I've been running workshops for 19 years. I'd say it's probably the first time in the last 10, 12 years that I've got my presentation, kind of run through it, but actually, I don't think that's what I'm going to do. It's just really weird. I can't put it into words, but I know that what's going to be on there, on the screen, we're going to do that, but I know there's going to be other things that appear as we're going through. So I also, today, I'm going to say I'm just looking forward to seeing what unfolds. I think that's also going to be based on the vibe of the group. Now, we've always had something new that comes in terms of this workshop. So there was one year I just learned energetic NLP, if any of you know Art Geyser. Another year, I just learned access consciousness, and I kind of figured out it was really cool to put that together with the HUNA. Another year, I become a soul plan reader, so this group was one of the first groups to experience the soul plan readings. Another year, I became a future life progression practitioner, so that came on stream in terms of doing it for the first time with the group here. I had the soul transformation core issue therapy, and when I shared it with you guys, it had never been shared. It had been shared once. I was in that inaugural group with Blue Marsden. Before that, it had only been taught in Japan. And so you guys were the first people probably in the UK outside of Blue's group to experience that. We then had the Game of Life, which was developed specifically by Gina Batt for this group. So you're the first people to have seen the cards, played the game, done all of the acting, done all of the dressing up. And today we've got the Silver Linings cards. Now, last time, we talked about the Silver Linings before. When did you produce those cards?
Last year.
Last year. And so though you, again, were the first people to see those. And this year, I've known Gina for 19 years and 1 month. In all that time, she's always talked about this thing called Walk Through the Woods. We've done it a few times as one-to-one process. And every couple of years, since we've been running MBS over the night, she goes, oh, we should do Walk Through the Woods. And yes, you should. And then it doesn't happen. Oh, we should. Yes, you should. And this year, she has brought it together in a way that even I've never seen it before. I've done a little snippet on the phone with you, and I was just blown away. And so for the first time, I think it's going to be the first time ever for a group. For the first time ever, you're going to take the Walk Through the Woods. And I'm really, really excited about that. And when you see the packs that Gina has put together as well, just incredible and absolutely awesome. Did you just shudder there?
It's like,
she's like, and if any of you have ever seen Gina work energetically, you will know in terms of the way that the energy moves through her. So there's always been something new. And it isn't that we sat down and gone, oh, we better do something new for MBS. It just so happens that every single time this comes around, and there's also been, the coaching cards was one of those direct correlation things where I was tidying up one night, this would have been 2 years ago now, and I was like, it'd be really cool to have my own cards next year. That was just a random thought. What was it, 4 weeks before the workshop? My brain was like, you said you wanted the deck of cards in the room, and I was like, it was too late now. It came back and went, well, no, it's not, the workshop's 4 weeks away. And I went, but there are no cards, I haven't designed anything. Well, stop arguing with me and get on with it then. And then I speak to Gina, and she says, oh yeah, this was on the, what was it, the Friday?
I think it was actually on the Monday, because they only had 3 days.
No, well, because you were, I think it was a Saturday, and you said, I'm sending it to them on Monday.
Right.
So now I'm like, well, 2 days to go from 0 to have a full deck of cards with all the pictures, all the words, everything. I was like, it can't happen. So I'm sat at home arguing with myself, and my brain was like, look, you could sit and you could argue with yourself for half a day, 2 days, or you could shut up and start. The worst thing that could happen is you will be 2 days into the design process. Next. So I'm like, all right then, and I just got my head down, and I think I sent it to them at something like 11:59 on the Sunday night. Day and a half. And so, again, it was just that random little voice that said, I really want you to have this in place by then. So I would say, good morning. I would say that what I really want you to do is just start thinking about, and now this, a deck of cards, isn't it an impossible dream? However, I will say to you, I've been thinking about this deck for, well, it would have been probably 15 years. So it took me a day and a half, but I've been gestating on that idea. That's a freaking long time. So just think about, is there anything that you are thinking about that you've been gestating on, go, that would be really cool, and whatever your version of that would be really cool is, do it. Because all of the cards are completely individual, completely different, you know, all the words, all the pictures. So again, whatever your version of, oh, I can't do that, it's not enough time, start thinking about that here as well, because tomorrow I really would like to do a piece where we think about what would you love if you were here next year to come back to the room and say, I've got this, I've achieved it, I've done it. Or actually, if you're not here, I'll be saying, oh, they're not here because they said last year they wanted to do traveling, and they can't be here today because they're traveling, X, Y, Z. So, you know, really, really be kind of thinking about all of that as well. Now, overview of what we're going to be doing for this weekend. We're going to be doing a retrospective of 2019 and also a forward look into 2020. So that's our clairvoyant piece with Gina. And we're also going to do some practical exercises as well to do a retrospective, to get you to look, see what's going on, what has been happening. And also what I want you to do is take stock as well, because there are things that maybe you did 2 or 3 months ago that are completely out of your head because it seemed like forever. And so that's why I said bring your diaries or have access to your calendar, because we really want to sit down and go back and look through that as well and have a reminder. We're going to do what I call my Charles Dickens review. It's one that I use with my breakthrough coaching clients all the time. And I just thought, actually, it is a process in its own right. So I'm going to take you through that. And I had a little bit of that this morning running around town. We're also going to do a soul plan review and a soul plan activation. We're going to use your soul plan in a slightly different way, because one of the things about the soul plans is once you've had, we use them generally here just in terms of having a quick read through. But people will find, particularly when we've done soul plan reading as well, they will look at their soul plan 5 years later and it still speaks to them, because it's almost like a living and breathing document. It's about your entire life, rather than just a snapshot in time. So we're going to pull out some of the challenges from the soul plan, because we want to put those into the mix for clearing. And we're also going to ask you to look at an aspect of your soul plan that you'd like to activate and step into or live into, and we're going to do some work to activate that aspect of your soul plan. So for example, one of the things on my soul plan was being in denial of spirituality, but apparently having a gift for oration and communication and speaking. So if I wasn't yet doing that, for example, but I thought, I'd really like to speak, I'd love to do that, then that might be a piece that I want to activate. So we're going to play with that. We're going to do a chakra activation and the silver cord of life exercise with Gina. And Gina, am I right in saying, is that still the plan? Yes. That people are going to do readings and learn to do readings for each other?
Absolutely.
Your eyebrows, I love it. So that's very cool. I'm really looking forward to that. We're going to do what I call the emotional baggage clearing, and that's really going to start from, oh Jesus, I've realised now what's happened a little bit. Gina, do you know, remember this morning I said to you in the lift, yes. Well, what I really want to do is things that we're clearing for the delegates, I really want to make sure that I also, in the background, are bringing those things up for myself and clearing them.
Yep.
When I tell you what I went through this morning in that 23 minutes, it is everything came to the surface just in that walk around the perimeter of town. So I'm like, thank you, unconscious mind, because you really get what you asked for. So I'm going to ask you to start thinking about what you want to release, what you want to clear, what is it time to let go of, and just start bringing all of those things to the surface so that we have them up for resolution. And we're going to be clearing throughout today and clearing tomorrow. And the intention is, when we'll say it again tonight, but really just asking your unconscious mind, anything that it's time, where you've got the learnings, you've had the experience, you've lived it enough, you've maybe been on Groundhog Day going round and round in circles with this thing, and this will make much more sense when Gina comes and gives you the retrospective piece as well. It is just, it's like this year, it's the time to get all that up to the surface and clear it once and for all, because as you go into 2020, you really want to do what I would call going in with your clean slate. You know, it's like calling time on whatever is not working. New act, new scene, new chapter, new book, new era, whatever it is, this is the time. And when Gina tells you about what's kind of going down for this year and beginning of next year, that will make even more sense. So really start thinking about that. We're going to do the walk through the woods. Going to do the silver linings life lessons and the stress release process. And Gina did the stress release the very, very first time we ran at MBS. And it's just, did somebody cry on that?
Yes.
Yeah. But it's you know, doing it, you're not doing it, just do it. It seems very simple, but actually it's like, wow. And we're saying this is the mind, body, spirit, energy fest, and this is one that really moves stuck energy out of the body, out of the system. And Gina will explain what all the finger points are as we go through, but it is a fantastic methodology for clearing the system, and I would suggest it might be one that you maybe even want to adopt outside of here and just use it every once in a while if you feel that things are backing up energetically. And then we're going to be doing the kind of planning, and Gina's devised some really cool exercises about the plan and the backup plan and all the rest of it. And actually, Gina, it's really interesting. I think it was Will Smith who was saying there's no plan B.
Yeah.
However, when I'm looking at it from the perspective that you're doing it, I like that as well, because it's when I did trainers training, there was an exercise called what's the worst thing that can happen? And when what happens is you tell the group what it is and they play it out for you. The reason they play it out for you, and I won't say her name, but Gina, you know her. Her name begins with R, we'll just leave it there.
Okay.
She told us what the worst thing was for her, and she said it will be teaching in front of a group of people, and they weren't paying attention, they weren't giving her any respect, they were actually almost heckling her and whatever, so we colluded as a group, we're just listening and smiling, then we got together as a group and said, okay, you do this, you do that. When she started teaching, oh my God, we were a little bit brutal to the point, she burst into tears in front of us. I know, then we all felt really bad, but then we couldn't feel really bad, it's like, that's what she said, that's her worst thing. So she burst into tears. In NLP terms, you can't go up and comfort someone because you anchor them into that state, so you just leave them to have whatever's going on, and then suddenly she just started giggling and started laughing, and she said that moment was pivotal because she knew now what it feels like to have that happen. She went through the whole thing and the recovery process, and then she was rock solid from that day forwards because nothing could faze her.
Can we do that?
Wow, so Alexa, for you, what's the, you know, but really, if that is the thing, and I had the experience, oh God, probably about 10 years ago, I did a horse whispering course, and there was a woman who was, how can I say this, because it's filming, it's just called taking the mick, let's call it that. She said people would take the mick and pee on her, let's put it that way. The horse that she was assigned, she goes into the ring, because you know, we do the veering, then you go into the ring, you meet your horse, because we all had individual horses. Guess what it did straight away? She peed on her. Seriously, and that comes with force and power. And we all went, and at that point, we all looked at each other and went, we believe the horses are looking into the chalet window, listening to what we're saying, and then they're playing it out in glorious technicolor of all the things that could have happened. How could that have happened to her? It was a thing, but then that was a breakthrough moment for her, because she's like, well, if that can happen, and I'm still standing, I can take anything. And it was just crazy. Mine was the one that I didn't think I had much authority, because I was just kind of getting into doing this stuff. And of course, I get the horse where, and I thought, it's all right, he won't listen to me, I'll just pull the horse. Have you ever tried to pull a horse? It's not going to happen. But the thing, when you get into your, what I call your authenticity, this is all I had to do next time round, once I'd refocused myself. Come on. Horse followed me anywhere and everywhere. I could have had a little piece of thread, and I would just tug on that and it would follow you. And it's like, oh my God, that's the whole thing about what's going on inside of you. It radiates out, because a horse will not follow someone who is not sure of themselves. A horse wants a strong leader. A horse is power. That could, one kick and we could be finished. They are powerful. However, when you are in your power, they will follow you. And there was one horse, it wasn't the one I was assigned, but there was a woman who was very shy, was always, you know, being picked on, bullied, etc. And she had a horse that had been beaten very badly to try and get it into the and they put up a piece of tarpaulin. The horse went crazy when it was with the handler, wouldn't go anywhere near it. After she'd done the coaching and got herself, tarpaulin's there, the horse was just like, okay, just walked through. It is just incredible. And all of that just reminds me about it's all of this stuff that's going on inside. And so I'm going to be inviting you in a safe space and environment with whatever's happening, with whatever's going on. This is a really good place to bring it to the surface so that we can kind of clear it. And then as we get into that planning phase tomorrow, you'll be planning not from a place of, oh my God, wishing and hoping, as I call it. And I don't even know, I would say congruence, because you never know what is going to happen. And when we look at the Dickens process, you're going to see exactly what I mean. You never know what's going to happen. When you have a sense of congruency, even if you're not 100% certain, and sometimes, well, not even sometimes, my brain is like, not sometimes, pretty much all the time. So majority of the time, my way isn't impressive enough. My way isn't big enough. But if I went with my tiny little version, and I'm like, do you know what? The universe has got far better plans for me a lot of the times. And if I go with that, way bigger than anything I could have wished for myself. So we're going to start the ball rolling with the wishes, desires, etc., and then leave space for the unfolding. And sometimes the unfolding can be a little bit messy and doesn't always happen in the way that we would like. However, we're going to do an exercise around that as well, because I really want you to kind of do a retrospective. And actually, just to get the ball rolling, can you please, for me, start thinking about what's one of the worst things that's ever happened to you? So, for example, do you know, it's really weird. One of the worst things that's ever happened to me is my partner having an affair. However, when you put that into the context of being sexually abused from the age of 7 to 17, you would think that that would be the worst thing. But whenever I think about the worst thing, it's the affair, which sounds crazy in the grand scheme of things. But I will show you how those two things led to me standing here today and led to me doing the things I've been doing for the last 19 years. I don't think it could have happened without those two events. And so the exercise we're going to do, I'm going to be asking you to think of one of the worst things, and then we're going to go through a process where you trace that back, just so you can see for yourself what it has led to. Because when you get that, it's like, I'm big on light bulbs. It's like the light bulb moment and the aha moment, where when that flicks on, you're like, oh my God, man. How can I say this nicely? Makes you a little bit less whiny, a little bit less moany when things happen. Now, don't get me wrong, it doesn't mean you're immune, because man, I was naffed off when I had to go out today and look for that stand thing. I was like, I am not a happy, Gina would say, I'm not a happy camper. I was not best pleased because I don't like being late. And I'm like, I've already told you what time I started, and now I'm running around town trying to look for this thing because it wasn't in the kit box. But then I had to think back to the time I was an event manager. It's like, okay, I used to write a big list for my staff, and I'd say, can you please, here's a list, and there's 3 columns. Check it off as you put it in the box. And then I want you to go back and look in that box. I want you to check it off again. And then before this box leaves this building, I want you to check that again, and I want 3 ticks in all the things. The reason being, because I used to spend hundreds of pounds on taxis, because I'd get to the venue, setting up for the event, I'm like, where's the clamp for the stand? Oh. I'd have to call a taxi to go back to the office, and now when you want the taxi to get out the taxi and ring the bell, that's extra. So they'd have to get out there, have to ring the bell, now I have to wait for somebody to go, and then they drive all the way back and bring hundreds of pounds. I'm like, there's got to be a better way. So I then started making people checklist things and run through lists. And then there was one of my assistants, her name was Diana, most inefficient woman I've ever met in my life. I made her do the list and I made her do the book, the A to Z book. A few years later, there's a company called Centaur. They produce magazines like The Lawyer, Money Marketing, Marketing Week, all those big, I don't even know, I haven't checked recently, but those were massive magazines back in the day. I ring up and I ask for Diana. You know who Diana was now? Event manager for massive organisation. And she got on the phone, she says, Marilyn, I really want to thank you. Oh, what's that? She went, I still to this day teach my staff the system that you taught me. And I really want to thank you, because I don't think I'll be doing what I'm doing today had it not been for that. I think she would have left the job under stress, just thinking she's not good at it, she's not cut out for it. But I'm like, she's making my life a misery, she's costing me hundreds of pounds off my budget, I'm going to come up with a system. And so it's this whole piece, but it was a terrible situation. But what came out of that was and I have no idea what she's doing now. I might actually look her up in the days of social media. But from those terrible mistakes, seeming mistakes that she kept making and costing me money and time and embarrassment sometimes, when a speaker says, have you got my slide deck? I'm like, because I know they sent it to me and then I sent it to someone else and then something, it was like, oh my God. But seriously, what came out of that when I had that conversation, I was tearful when I was talking to her. I'm like, that is so cool. That is absolutely amazing. The little thing I made up just to make my life easier now led to her Centaur Publishing event manager. That's cool. That's crazy. And all of it came from some really terrible, frustrating, extremely annoying places. So start thinking about what for you has, and you don't have to tell anyone, you can if you want, but we won't have the camera on, I'll turn that off shortly. But you just start making a note, just have a think, what's been the worst thing, and just start writing them down. So when we come to do the exercise, you've got a few of them to hand. And in terms of some of the things that have happened, this is one that we have heard a lot. When I went round the room the second year that I ran it and I said, why are you here? What would you like to get from today? First person said everything that I worked on last year came true, so I'm back for more of the same. I went to the second person, they said exactly the same thing. I went to the third person, went to the fourth person, they said exactly the same thing. And so, but I also realised over the years, is people sometimes don't even remember because time moves fast and we're just on the go, which is why then I also started doing the retrospectives, because then people would have those aha moments. We had the person who said they wanted to be mortgage free when they did the MBS, and they had a lot of baggage and debt and stuff they were carrying. And when I met them a few years ago, there was the thing they're mortgage free. That was Keith who said he wanted to experience deep love and be in a relationship, and then came back the second year as my guest with his girlfriend. This was Amana. She says almost everything I called for when I first went on the first workshop has manifested. 0 credit card debt. Worked in Saudi, moved to Atlanta to be with my children, get into the vortex, and that's the lovely Amana Shaka. Some of you know her, and if you haven't seen it, the video is now back up on my website if you want to go and watch the interview on the leopard print sofa with her. And we've always had really, somebody had scored it 100 out of 10, which is really lovely. And so we just had some really, really nice things. And this was from Nori. Yeah, I couldn't ask for anything more. All of my hopes have been blown out of the water. So more of the same. I've had the best year. And she said that last year. And she's not here this year. She's off travelling.
She's in Sri Lanka.
Yeah. Amazing.
On a retreat, and they just finished yesterday.
Wonderful.
Oh, wow.
And I think she listed a load of countries that she's going to. Was it you who said?
But she was, because she said something like, I've been on something, a small trip or something like that.
Yeah. And you're like, well, I don't know what a big trip is.
Yeah.
She's been to Catalonia on an angel retreat. She's been to
Caribbean. She's been to Bali.
She's been to Bali like a couple of weeks ago, and now she's in Sri Lanka. She's doing well.
And when she came, this was not her cup of tea. I don't know if you remember, Gina, where she sat almost looking a bit like, who are these people and what have I let myself in for? This was not her thing at all. Just so happened, I think it was Amana who had mentioned me, and she had watched the video and thought, oh, I'll give it a go. She wasn't into any of this stuff at all. And now, like I said, angel retreats and, do you know what I mean? So people's lives have really kind of changed and opened up once they get... Be careful. This is your first time, Judith, what can we say? All I'm going to say is be careful what you wish for. Okay. Actually, it's this might be you. But people have said very similar things, but it's so much value and so much fun. I look forward to this day for the whole year, which is really, really lovely. That's nice, and I think the majority of you booked a year ago, so 12 months in advance to kind of be here, which is really, really nice. So the thing that made it different for me in terms of everything I've been doing up to that point was working on all of those levels, because I do some stuff for the mind, people meditate, etc. But it's like I want to work on the mind, I want to work on the body, I want to work on the spirit, I want to work on the soul. So it's bringing all of those kind of pieces together now. So first thing, in terms of making the most of the next 2 days, number one, give yourself permission. And Gina's always talking about being a permission-based psychic. She's probably going to talk about that again today. But each and every one of you, give yourself permission to clear whatever it is time to clear, and to start thinking about creating and generating what it is you now choose to create. And it can be as simple as saying to yourself, or even saying out loud, yeah, I give myself permission. And what I always say to my breakthrough coaching clients is, because I say, like when we do access consciousness, is it okay to release, resolve, and destroy and uncreate that now?
Yes.
Now that she's already in the zone, like, yes. But the logical answer would be, I've just paid you, of course I want to clear this, but actually, if you ever come up with a no, don't just try and force it. You want to sit with that and go, okay, what is it about this that it's not okay for me to release, that it's not okay for me to resolve, that it's not okay for me to clear? Because you want to work on that piece first, otherwise it can put a little bit of a spanner, or a big spanner in the work. So don't just say yes and pretend to yourself. If you kind of go, oh my God, I'd love this, and that, whatever that is, write that down. And we're going to do the black and white exercise today as well, in terms of how we start addressing that as well. Set your intention. And I'm going to say, what is your overall intention, which might extend beyond today? So, all the traveling, the mortgage free, going to Saudi, being with children, retiring abroad, etc., etc. That's big. That wasn't just about in this moment, today, or the weekend. It's bigger than that. So I would say, trust your unconscious mind, inner wisdom, higher self, whatever you want to call it. What's your intention? And go with the first thing that comes to mind and write it down. What is your intention? And you can change your mind, you can add to it, but just to get the ball rolling, what's your intention? Okay. And you don't have to tell anyone. Let me tell you, and it's one that I think many of you probably do. Esther and Jerry Hicks, you know who I'm talking about when I say those names. If you don't, look them up on YouTube. One of my favourites. One of the things that Jerry has now passed over, but one of the things that Jerry always used to say to his clients, and he did a lot of corporate work, he'd say, keep your goals, keep your dreams to yourself. Because there are times you can tell people, now, a couple of categories, there were people who are just not happy for you. And they're kind of in the background just waiting for you to fail, and then they can remind you. There are other people who think they're being helpful by going, have you done it yet? How's it going? Have you achieved it? But actually what that can do, it can start to erode your confidence. Because every time you see them, they're going to bring it up. Oh, have you, got your dream house abroad? Oh, have you met the man of your dreams? Oh, have you set up your company yet? Oh, have you, whatever it might be. And it can just be bloody annoying. And then every time you see them, now it's a constant reminder, you haven't done it yet. You haven't achieved it yet. It's not completed yet. So sometimes you want to keep your mouth shut and keep it to yourself unless you truly have a cheerleader. So Gina is one of my cheerleaders. When we talk about things, it's from a place of either expansion, moving them forwards, or like, oh man, do you know what? I've hit a wall, a barrier again. I think if you've never seen, you can probably just search for it, Oprah Winfrey and Gayle King friendship. There's a really beautiful interview that Oprah did about Gayle King. And they've been friends since they worked at the TV station. And she said, I knew she was a true friend because she was always happier for me than I was for myself. Because there are some people, you'll tell them what you're doing, what you've achieved, and they're like, oh, that's great. But you can tell there's a little bit of energy there. And it's almost like the way that there's a woman called Brenda Romanes who we were all just so excited when she was on TV. It's like, oh, a black woman on TV, she's got a proper job, she's not cleaning. Because she used to co-host, I'm not kidding, she used to co-host a program called The Closed Show Live, which was a massive show back in the day. And I went to a talk with her at Royal Bank of Scotland. And she said, one of the things that happens in this industry when you're black, it's like crabs in a barrel. You try and get out the barrel, the others who are not there yet will try and pull you back in. Because they don't want, and in Australia, generally, nothing to do with being black about that, the statement, they call it the tall poppy syndrome. If you're here, everyone else is here, they want to come and cut that poppy down now. And it can just be the little throwaway comment, oh, well, you said that ages ago. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't seem like much, but if you're still trying and working on it, and something, oh, I thought you said that ages ago, now you're like, oh, crap. Yeah, I did, didn't I? Maybe it's just not for me. Oh, maybe I'll give up. Yeah, pipe dream, why not? Don't. So I would say be okay keeping it to yourself unless you truly have a cheerleader who has got your back. There's no animosity there, there's no jealousy there, there's no resentment there, and there's no pressure. because I think that's where one of the problems comes. It's the pressure, haven't done it yet, haven't done it yet, haven't done it yet, and then people kind of move themselves into a place that is not what you call resourceful. I'm going to say go with the flow, and when I'm running around town, I'm halfway there, I'm like, oh my God, it's 9:57, and I'm just now discovered, it's closed, and I'm like, you know what, it is what it is. I'm here for a reason. I could have just said, Gina, you didn't put the clamp in the thing, I now will have to ask you to do the thing where you just sit and hold the camera. That's horrible. More than 10 minutes, most people start to get the twitch and the shakes and all the rest of it, and I'm like, I can't do that, that's not good. But then I'm like, I just have to go with the flow, and I'm going to have to trust that there is something good is going to come out of this. And then by the time I got to the Apple Store, I'm like, I get it now. Everything I'm going to talk about today is encapsulated in this moment. Just go with the flow. And then when I was coming back, I was going to start running again. I thought, look, I'm already getting hot flushes now. So I'm not now going to start running as well to add to my woe. So if you see me on the way back, this is me just strolling. Anybody would think I had all the time in the world. I'm like, it's 10:20. I'm a bit late. I'm sure Gina can keep everyone amused. And if people remember that they want to go and get a coffee, they can go and get a coffee, or they can have something to eat. All the biscuits and cakes and fruits are there. I'm like, just chill, Marilyn. Go with the flow. Everything in perfect time. And I was thinking, okay, I know Winnie was running late, so maybe by the time I get there, Winnie will just be arriving, so she won't have missed anything. Because part of it initially was, I'm going to get the thing, so during the break, I can say to Winnie, what we did in the morning is on my Facebook page, and you can just press the button and da-da-da, and I'm like, well, now, hot damn, I'm going to be later than Winnie. So, but it was just like, Marilyn, just chill. What's the worst that can happen? People in the room, but they're with Gina, and they're with each other.
Everything was cool, so don't worry.
Exactly. But it was, but in our lives, in our minds, we'll get into a complete tiz about something, and it's not the end of the world. So the go with the flow is like, okay, that was my big one for this morning. So I would say, even if you feel, oh, by the way, you do not have to make an apology if you feel emotional. We're catering for you. We've even put it in a silver box.
Oh, wow.
And Gina's got another big box at the back. So if you need man-sized tissues, go to Gina. Don't need little tissues, they're here. So, we're catering for everything. So don't apologise for being human, particularly if there's been a challenge. And I would say, with everything that we're doing, I think most of you are pretty well versed in this now, keep an open mind. Because sometimes things seem crazy. And I still, to this day, Mark, if you've watched the video on my website, the very first time I put Huna and Access Consciousness together in a breakthrough session, I went to my e-newsletter list and I said, look, I'm going to do a half-price breakthrough session. I want someone just to try this concept out for me and let me know how it goes. So it's Mark Forster. He refreshed the photo workshop this year. We were talking about it a few months ago. So he sits on the sofa and I'm like, okay, so I explain what we're going to do and explain this thing called Access Consciousness. So I said, yeah, I'm going to ask you a question. Anything you want to clear, anything you want to release, and then I'm going to say the clearing statement. And I said the clearing statement, Mark burst out laughing. I'm like, okay. I said it again, he burst out. This was a 4.5-hour session. Every time I said the clearing statement, we're going to say it loads today, he just burst out laughing. But I didn't mind because I knew he had an open mind. So he wasn't laughing because he thought it was rubbish, nonsense. He just found it funny, and it is a crazy statement. But I'm like, that's the prerequisite. That's what I ask of my clients. You can be a little bit skeptical, but have an open mind, even when it maybe seems a little bit crazy, a little bit bonkers. You're like, why are you asking me to do this? Or I'm going to say one word. Gina's going to do an exercise that involves bears today. Keep an open mind. Even if you're like, why is she asking me about this? What is she asking me to do? Why is she giving me this thing? Keep an open mind, because one of the things I've realised is it all comes together in the end. And I'm going to ask you to notice what you notice. Notice when things come up, because it's time for resolution. Also, as we go through the retrospective of the year, every single time I go, oh my God, I did that. I achieved that. Oh my gosh, I could just take a moment to notice and acknowledge it and savor it. Like, you've got all these wonderful little gifts on your table. It's like every single time you notice something that you did, that you achieved, that you're like, oh my God, oh yeah, I said that. Just kind of, it's like a gift. You go, oh man. My thing is, thank you. And then you notice something else. You go, oh my God, I did that too. And just the acknowledging it is like giving yourself a little gift. And what that does for your neurology is it wakes it up. You get your hit of serotonin, you get your hit of dopamine, you feel good. And that also is where the momentum comes from. So every single time you notice you've achieved something, you've moved from where you were, something has changed, something has transformed, even if you haven't yet achieved the ultimate big picture, be happy about these little gems along the way, because that for me really is where the juice and where the power and where the magic of a lot of transformation is. It isn't just in the big stuff, it's all the stuff along the way. And if you don't appreciate that, you sometimes don't get to where you're going because you've just eroded the whole thing, because you're looking for that and you're not noticing what I call the green shoots. So there's going to be a fair bit of that today, and a big part of it is just saying yes to yourself. And when we say that, well, we know, even if you weren't saying it, we've got Alexa by proxy who's going to be shouting yes for you. But when we do the access, that's why I say yes out loud, because you affirm it to yourself, you affirm it to your neurology that yes, I'm ready, yes, let's do this, yes, let's go, da 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 da. So, we're going to, with regards to the slides that we've got coming up, hey, I need to point out to those of you who've been with me over the years in this room, they have a new projector. Do you realise the lights are on, sun is shining, and we can see the words? I've been asking for a new projector for about 6 years. And I came in today, I said to Gina, I think I've got a new projector. Because I saw the remote first on the table, I'm like, please God, don't let it just be a new remote. But you can see the words, it's wonderful, without having to be in darkness. So in the corner, I haven't put it on every single slide, but the majority of the slides that we're going to be working on, you've got a picture of the clipperboard, which means there's some action to be taken. So you're going to be doing something, thinking something, writing something, clearing something, and then we're going to have what I call home play. So there might be times, like with the stress release, for example, I know we haven't done it yet, but I'm going to suggest that's a really good piece of home play that you might want to adopt it into your daily life. So that would be a really good thing to think about. So those little symbols are going to appear at times. So let's get down to business. About you. First of all, what would you like to learn or take away from this weekend? Write that down. What would you like to learn? What would you like to take away? And I'm going to say with this one, play with your intuition as well. Let your intuition, don't try and, sometimes you try and make sense of it and try and just go with the flow. Whatever your intuition says, write that down rather than arguing, second guessing. And if you get the thing where you go, oh my God, that's big, you want to notice that because we want to clear the thing that might get in the way of that. Oh, we're at the Make-A-Wish fountain, water fountain. And when you've thought about what you would like to learn or take away from this weekend, question 2, why are you here? Once you've kind of thought about why you're here, what would make this a valuable and worthwhile use of your time and energy? Because you could be anywhere. You could be in India, in Bali, at home, snoozing, catching some sun, even though it's a little bit cold out there. Whatever, you could be doing 1,000,001 other things. So what would make this valuable and worthwhile use of your time, valuable and worthwhile use of your energy? And again, go with whatever comes to mind. also, it might be one and the same with number 3. So it's kind of 3A. What's your wow factor? What's the thing that could happen that would cause you to go, oh, wow? What's your wow factor?
Can you explain the last one again?
Something that will make you go, oh, wow. So, for example, I'm either going, oh, I'd love to be there, but I can't because I'm living in Saudi. It's like, oh my God, wow. Do you know what I mean? So something that when you achieve it, when you've done it, you go, oh, wow.
Oh, okay.
What's your, something that you go, oh my God, wow. Would anybody like to share, any one of those things? It might be what you'd like to learn and take away from this weekend would be really, really useful for myself and Gina, because we can either look in horror and go, oh crap, we're not doing that, or yay, which has never happened, let me just point that out. So, in terms of, what would you like to learn? What would you like to take away? So to read interpret, say, what's your purpose? And in my daily life, I go, what's your intention? So, anyone want to throw anything into the mix about what you'd like to learn or take away from this weekend? Also our benchmark piece, because some of this we'll be able to kind of check it off by tomorrow. Right, so first, what have we got on the list in terms of learn or take away from today or this weekend?
When I was reading my soul plan, one of the things said that I don't trust my inner power and I'd rather go to a guru.
Yeah.
So one of my intentions is to actually trust and feel confident about my inner power going forward, and don't feel that I have to get advice from someone else or guidance. Just trust that I can do it, and I don't need to keep learning.
Now, your inner power, do you know what that is, where that is, what it feels like, what it sounds like? If I was going to say describe it to me, would you be able to? And would you know how it communicates with you? Because for me, it's going to sound like weird. I hear voices, and there's a voice that will say, go over there, do this, do that. It's very different to my daily chatter, so I know that is what I call my inner self. So what's your version? Is it a thought? Is it a feeling? Is it an inner knowing? Is it something that you kind of see? How would you describe that aspect of yourself?
I'm quite intuitive and kinesthetic, so I not normally operate from the gut. So I normally get gut feelings, and and when I'm not sure, sometimes I use a dowser.
Yeah.
Check, that's what I do. So,
Cool. And so in terms of how does your intuition speak to you or communicate with you?
I just get that feeling.
Okay, cool. And is it a good feeling? How would you? Because for me, I'm like I know when I'm done with something or something's a good idea, because I'm like, how can I? It's not butterflies. It's warm, but an electric pulse, which probably isn't going to make any sense to anyone else. But I know that feeling, and that's like, I'm good, I'm done, or it's a good idea. So how does yours feel for you to know? Yeah, we're on the money, and I can trust this one.
It's funny you should say that, because I often come up with like really good ideas, but I don't act on them. So that would be another thing to really get from, actually, implementing the feeling or the idea.
And a bit like the thing with the deck of cards, I'm like, oh, but I don't have time, it's only a day and a half. Because by the time I finished talking to Gina, it was like afternoon on the Saturday, and I'm like, no time, but it felt like a great idea, do you know what I mean? So I then, my voice overrode my whiny voice, and went, okay, let's stop right there. So I'm going to say this weekend, every single time, I've got an ideas book, every single time you get a good idea, a great idea, just write it down. Just write it down. You don't have to do all of them. You can turn into the crazy lady, trying to implement everything. But you're going to know there's going to be a couple you go, oh, you know what? Like this was one of those ideas. That woke me up in the morning and said, you need to work on your mind, your body, your spirit, and your soul. I'm like, cool idea. I can do that. They went, oh, but wait, there's more. But like those infomercials. But the reason we've been in this room for the last 9 years is because of one of those ideas. And even though I only had 3 weeks, because I knew I wanted to do it before the end of the year as a precursor to the following year, I still went ahead. I thought, let me just do it. Let me just put it out there, see what happens. So, every single time you get to a point, you go, oh, you know what? All of these have aligned. Yeah. Even though there might be reasons, excuses, whatever you want to kind of think, you kind of go, you know what? Shall I just give this a go? So really, really look out for that one. Cool. And actually, when I was sort of giggling when I wrote that one down, because I remember the first act of the Game of Life. Do you remember that one with the Steph? And we were like, whoa!
Yeah.
So, it's a bit like that. It's a bit like that. So you've had, let's say, glimpses of it, and you played with the energy of it, so you know it's there. And now it's maybe then time to go, okay, let's now fully embody that and bring it to life in a whole different kind of way. But you want it to feel congruent, you want it to feel in alignment. It doesn't feel like you're playing a role, it is you, do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And when people say, it does throw people, and I think they think I'm joking, I'm totally not. When they go, hey, how are you? Most of the time I'm like, I'm fabulous, thank you, how are you? And they're like, whoa, you don't expect that answer from someone. And then people go, oh, what's happened? I'm like, nothing. I'm just alive, I woke up, I'm fit, I'm healthy, my mind is good. So really, when I say I am fabulous, it's not a joke. I actually feel that in every fibre of my being. I'm not trying to be funny or comedic, that's just the way it is. And so I'd say this might be one of the overarching things that we really want to play with this weekend, such that by the time you step over the threshold of that door on Sunday at 6:30, or between 6 and 6:30, you're like, this is me, this is it. I don't know if you've seen The Greatest Showman. I've got goosebumps, I can hear the song. Is it called This Is Me, or This Is It? This is me. This is me. Yeah, if you haven't seen it, look it up. Just sit and watch it.
Was it a show?
The Greatest Showman it's called. So the movie, the modern day iteration, stars Hugh Jackman. If you go onto YouTube, This Is Me, Greatest Showman. It is a, bless you. And they showed it at the Watford Outdoor Cinema. Oh, and there was a troop of girls who were clearly from a dance school. So they're doing the whole, up by the pond, for those of you who have been that far up in town, they're doing the whole rendition. Suddenly they just sprung out of nowhere and they're doing this great big dance. And everyone, we're on our deck chairs and we're all just singing the song. And it was really emotional, it was fantastic. But then you see it's about the diversity and everybody's just saying, this is me. So just whatever that is, we'll check in as we go through the weekend. And then I would say, maybe just for the fun of it, because I like a little bit of ritual, as you step out of this door on Sunday, when you leave, you're like, okay, I'm stepping into this. When you get home to your front door, you kind of say, do you know what? I'm drawing a line. And now as I step into my home, I step into it, embodying this. And then a coaching game you can play with yourself on a daily basis. What can I do today to trust my inner power? What can I do today to bring into, step into, tap into more of my inner confidence? And then that intuitive part, your gut feeling part will speak to you and say, well, actually, do this, do that. Or it might not come, sometimes there's nothing in the moment, but you're going throughout the rest of your day, and then you get an idea or it speaks to you and says, you know what, do this. And then you just kind of go, oh my God, yeah. And you start getting into more of that. Cool, thank you for sharing. Anyone else in terms of what you'd like to know, learn, take away from this weekend? Go for it.
I think I will go with my soul plan as well. One of my challenges, according to my soul plan, and I think that's true as well, repress emotional baggages
Yeah.
and abandonment scenarios and isolation. So I've been thinking about it, and I really like to, kind of recognize my emotional baggage and leave them behind me, and stepping into my kind of full potential and accept my worth.
And when you have stepped into your full potential, how will you know? Again, what does that look like? What does that sound like? What does that feel like? When you stepped into your full potential, how do you know that?
I will feel more confident about kind of talking in front of people. I'm usually quite good kind of one-to-one, but when it comes to talk in front of a couple of hundred people, I get quite nervous and I feel like I'm wasting people's time.
Okay, I'm going to give you a little home plate exercise to do. Again, YouTube it, not YouTube it, Google it. You know the Marianne Williamson,
Yeah.
Deeper Sphere?
Yeah.
We've done it before as an exercise.
Yeah,
like
it's in here.
Yeah, cool,
One
you got it
last.
in there, you got it from last time, brilliant. So, the thing about that is, the bit there's, as you were talking, I just heard the words, who are you not to? Do you know what I mean? And that was that pivotal moment I had in October 2000, where I went from quite shy, lacking in confidence, low self-esteem, yada, 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 to, how am I not to speak and share? Of course I know some cool stuff. Yes, I've learned some, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was just suddenly, it's like, why wouldn't I? No, it wasn't who am I not to, it was why wouldn't I? Why wouldn't I speak? Why wouldn't I share? Why wouldn't I do this? And I actually couldn't come up with an answer. I was like, well, I better just do it then. Do you know what I mean? As my sister pointed out a few Christmases ago, when somebody was saying, "So Marilyn, what do you do?" I can feel the groan in the room, like, because everybody else is normal. One's a lawyer, one's an accountant, and, one's a retail manager, and then the new boyfriend's like, "So what do you do, Marilyn?" And you feel going, "Whoa." So well, and I started. I said, "Oh yeah," and he said, "Oh, that sounds really amazing." And I said, "Yeah, I used to be very quiet and shy," and then my sister, and then I'm saying, and then since I learned that, and she's cooking, she went, "Yeah, she hasn't sharp since." But it is that I went from, as my dad would used to say, describe me, I wouldn't say boo to a goose. I went from that to, man, now, it's like, how long have I got? But it really started with that. I remember that moment. It's like, well, why wouldn't I? Why wouldn't I speak? I'm like, okay, then it's game on. And it was that. So I would say also, when I say notice what you notice, just notice that moment where something goes, why wouldn't you? And you just go, or who am I not to, whatever it is. But I'd say reread that piece and just take in every single line. Just like, okay. It was so interesting speaking to Marianne Williamson about that piece and asking her, Marianne, why that piece and what were you doing? And I expected some big, profound answer. That was not the answer that I got. But for whatever reason, that is the piece that has resonated with people, and it's deep.
Yeah.
So I would say definitely read it again this weekend, and read it in the context of this, and just go, okay, who am I not to? Why wouldn't I? And then, as we go through today, when you think about the whole thing, couple of hundred people, I want you to just start writing down all the things that come up that would get in the way of that and would stop and block, and just write them down, and we put them into the mix when we're doing the clearing. So, and actually just on that note, in the things that you want to clear, you might want to start writing them on a separate piece of paper. Because what I might do, actually it might be a good idea to do that actually, I'm not a graphologist, I will not know who's written what, so you don't need to put your name with. Just write down the things you want to clear, the things you want to get rid of, and then I will take those and I'm going to put those into the mix for one of the first access consciousness pieces. So I'll just take what you've written and I'll just be going through those statements, because it might be that what you've written resonates with, as normally happens, resonates with everyone else, and so it'll be a big resounding yes. And I'll just run through just as a big list, and we'll start running through and clearing those things. Thank you for that. Oh yes, okay. I'm going to think about when I want to give out the emotional baggage. You'll have to go downstairs and ask.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt the flow. Just a bit.
Yeah, they've taken control away from the room, so you have to keep now going back downstairs to ask them to do it. Previously, I would have just. Gina,
Yes.
when you're down there, can you? Because I know it's possible.
Yes.
Can you say to them, "Can you give us control of the room, please?"
I will do that.
Thank you. So we're actually going to have some emotional baggage, and when I hand these out, I won't do it yet because it's going to be a little bit uncomfortable. But what you're going to need to do is you're going to put it fully on your back, like so, and then you're just going to sit as you are now in your chair. The reason I'm not going to give them out right this second, you'll see why when you sit back in your chair, what's going to happen. But we will be giving out some extra emotional baggage today for you to have a little bit of a play with. So that is coming up. Now, I see you struggling with this curtain, but you will not have any luck unless I do this.
Ah, right, okay. I didn't realise they joined.
Actually, I think it's the end of the line. Let me just check one sec. I put it here, so let's do that.
I'm sorry I'm shutting you down.
Yeah, I might have to find something, see if I can clip that.
Is there any notepads? Any written?
Yeah. There you go. Oh, that's a good point actually, you can write them on there. Yeah, if anybody hasn't got any spare sheets, if you want some of these little sheets to write on. Oh, you're not wearing it, are you? No. Okay. Oh, thanks. Thank you. Do you want to give a go and clip that? That's gorgeous. Oh, well, the way they set it up last time, we used to be able to switch it off from here, but I think now they took central control back downstairs. So previously, I've had to start running up and downstairs if I want it on, if I want it off. But I know there's a way that downstairs they can hand control back to the room.
Okay.
Rather than, because what will happen is you can turn it off, about 30 to 60 seconds later it comes back on again.
Yeah, it depends what temperature you set it at. So it's like at home, it's like a thermostat.
Yeah.
So if I put it at 19,
Yeah.
yeah, okay, so it should switch off.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if it goes below 19, it'll click back on.
Okay.
All right.
Cool.
Yeah. So it's all set at 24, so that's why you're really hot.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can put it on cooling, but then I'll have to come back and put it on.
I'm from the Caribbean.
All right. So it's on 19.
Thank
all right.
you.
That's okay. So I'll regulate it at that. all
You
right?
really are learning the hotel inside out,
Yeah,
aren't you?
I'm on it,
This is
I'm on it.
fabulous.
You might want to leave the door open from the wedge.
Yeah, we've got
Yeah,
one.
might-
We've got one.
Yeah.
Fabulous. Any more in terms of why you are here and what you'd like to take away before we get into it?
Me.
Go for it.
Okay. I'm going to use the word soul searching
Yeah.
for a particular reason. Ever since I started having an interest in self-development, personally, professionally, I've been to various workshops, stuff, spent a lot of money doing courses, but the bottom line is I want to find what my gift is.
Yeah, okay.
And what my purpose is, and although I do something totally different professionally, the idea of having a job that I love, I do love my current job, but it's finding the gift, and it's the link between the gift, my job, and being happy. If I close my eyes, I can see financial freedom and I can see traveling, but it's just, I see other people bloom and develop, and I see their gifts. I just question what is mine.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like that.
And for the past 23 years doing the job that I do, I feel it's routine. It's not a job that I love, and I realized that recently. And it's like I want to wake up knowing that, oh, I don't have to think twice about getting out of bed. It's having that spring in my step to feel good about myself. I think health-wise, there's been a bit of a slump, and me not accepting myself because a big confidence thing is my skin. So I've been going on in circles with my skin and the issues. So yeah, it's just giving more to myself and accepting myself. That's more like it. when you talked about emotional baggage and stuff yesterday while driving home, a very strange thing happened. I tend to deviate after work. I don't want to go home immediately, so I stop at a local or surrounding Costa, buy a takeaway hot chocolate, sit in my car, and it's like winding down before I go home. So I did that yesterday, and I've been doing it for the whole of the week. So you normally go straight home, I go there. This is my time, and I was feeling not very well. I kind of felt low, thinking, what is it, whatever. I know finances was a bit of an issue for the past couple of weeks, but it came to a point where I needed to let go, and I cried hysterically, and I couldn't understand why I did what I did, but to me it was a release. It was something consciously, for which I knew finances, but I've been like putting a lid on stuff basically. But there was a deeper unconscious thing which I'm still trying to figure out. But it was I just cried, and I cried like a little kid, and it was like, I don't normally behave that way. So for me yesterday was that release, because I think I've been too strong for too long. That was just, yeah.
I think that's Mary Jane Blige. No, seriously, I think she's got a song called that.
I didn't even know that, yeah.
Yeah, those of you who've done sort of individual sessions, you will know that often when people say things, if it's on the track, I hear songs that relate. Immediately I heard, and then she's just got a line, I've been too strong for too long.
Yeah.
So yeah, interesting.
And one thing I will admit, and I can self-admit at the moment, is that I find it difficult looking at myself in the mirror. And it's not just the weight and stuff, but it's just me. And yeah, it's a whole lot of work to get there. And it's definitely not PMS or anything. It's just, yeah, wow.
Cool. Now we're going to come back to this one in a bit. So keep kind of thinking and incubating on that one. And what I want you to do is I want you to tune in to your own energy. And I want you to kind of think of it in terms of stages. So you can think about, okay, how would I rate my physical health, well-being, energy, scale of 1 to 10. 1 equals like, oh my God, it's so low. 10 equals I'm bouncing off the wall. So how are you in your physical body? So if you've been feeling unwell, etc., that's maybe going to take it down a few notches. Also think about your emotional well-being. How are you emotionally? 1 equals low, not good. 10 equals, oh my God, amazing. Also think of it, and I know people don't often think about their soul health, but I want you to think of it in terms of your soul. How is your soul? And it might be like, well, I don't know, I've never asked it. So that could give you your answer in and of itself. But you just think, okay, how am I on a soul level? Because I was saying to Gina recently, I said, you know what, I'm a bit tired, but I'm not physically tired, I'm not emotionally tired, my soul is tired, you know, and so it is the time for that next level piece. And also in terms of your spiritual well-being, and you might even put into that, you know, your spiritual practices. For example, if you know you have spiritual practices, but you haven't been practicing them, for example, it's, if somebody's giggling, so it's that sort of thing. So just rate all of those. 1 equals like, oh man, not good at all, and 10 equals, you know, brilliant, off the chart. And so rate each of those 4 areas. Oh, thank you for this, Edda.
Very welcome.
Something's wrong. Merry Christmas. Oh no, God, Gina's going to tell me off. I'm not allowed to say Merry Christmas till December. Tomorrow. And this is kind of your benchmarking piece as well, because I've had people who have come back to various workshops, they've used the same notebook, flick through, see something they wrote a few months ago, go, oh my God. I remember on one of them, she's like, I know I wrote this, but I can't believe I wrote this and how I was feeling back then. So can be a nice benchmark. And then you're going to choose, when you think of that as a collective, how would you just, 1 word to describe your present state? 1 word. The word Gina and I have been playing with this weekend is discombobulated. I just like that word, I don't know. And then you're going to think of 1 word to describe your ideal 2020, or you could be going even further into the future. One word to describe your ideal future, or if you're just looking in year ahead, 2020.
What if you're unsure?
Well, it could be, that could be your word.
Oh.
That could be the word.
Well, I put free, and then I thought, no, what if I can't cope with it being free?
Cool. And so that bit about can't cope, if you're writing a little list of things you maybe want to look at releasing and working on, can't cope will go onto that sheet of paper.
Okay.
And then you have a word for this year. How would you describe this year? The year that we're present in, we're just coming out of it, getting to the end of the road for 2019. How would you, one word to describe this year?
Still set free water.
Sorry.
Oh, yeah. Look, did you want to finish that sentence? No, it's
Perfect. We'll come back to this one. And anybody got any words they want to throw up about the present or this year?
Challenging.
Well, I had very slow moving, but that's 3 words, so I turned it into glacial.
Oh, I love that. Any more for any more?
Disappointment.
Any more for any more?
I had withdrawn. Mixed.
Life is like a box of chocolates. Any more for any more? Say that again?
They're up there.
Oh, they're up there. It's like, yeah, all of the above. Optimistic, optimistic. Powerful. Any more for any more?
Let down.
New beginnings.
Enlightening.
Satisfactory.
I like that. Your performance was satisfactory. That's the one on the feedback form where the face is just like in a straight line. Anything else? Anything else? Positive. Cool. And we're going to come back to this one, and I'm going to come back to this one as well and choose some of the things that we want to put into the mix for the clearing also. Effortless. That was one of my favourite words when I first got into hypnotherapy, when I was creating my inductions. Doing it easily and effortlessly.
Disconnected.
Overwhelming. Out of touch. Cool. Again, all of these things you could be incubating on, and every single time you think of something that you kind of think, Okay, enough of that, done with that, would like a different experience. We're just going to throw that into the mix and be kind of be clearing on those. So keep thinking. So next what we're going to do is we are going to have a retrospective look at what we've just been through, 2019 from a clairvoyant and psychic level. Maybe a little bit of a teeny weeny one-word taster for 2020 because that's coming later. So can you please welcome the fabulous, wonderful Gina Batt.
Yeah. Right. This is actually going to be quite a brief one, isn't it?
It is. You're just your taster and your
Right.
warm-up.
Okay, this we can do because I'll go in depth. Right, 2019. This has been a year of, one of the first things mentioned, challenges, major challenges. This has been a year where the universe is saying, right, you want to get rid of your stuff, this is your opportunity. This is the year that everything that you don't like or you don't want is going to be brought up. So the start of the year, it may have gone with it, for me it did. I had a big bang at the beginning of the year, which was like, where on earth did that come from? But again, linking to what Marilyn had said earlier, sometimes we don't succeed because we have the wrong people or person around us. Now that can be in a working environment, it can be in a relationship. And what will happen is this year, and it's an invitation, it's not a dictation, it's an invitation. So if you're not happy where you're working, then okay, it's going to become very uncomfortable. And this is the year that it's like, well, do you really want to stick with this or would you like to do something that will change? If it's a relationship, ooh, I want to murder them. Or do you really want to think about, actually maybe this relationship needs to change? Now it doesn't mean to say that you have to split, but what it may be saying to you is we need to sit and renegotiate. We need to talk about the boundaries of what's happening. And my belief system has always been everything happens in perfect time. Even if I don't particularly like it at the time, that as you come out the other side, there is always a benefit where you can actually then say, oh, that's why that happened. That's why it's taken this length of time. That's why I'm feeling this way. But the word for 2019 was finding your authenticity, your authentic self. It was the opportunity, and is the opportunity, to be true to you. What is it that I want? What direction do I want to go in? And who do I want to do that with? Where do I want to do it? So some people are traveling the world as we speak because they have found where they're at, what they want to be doing, where they want to be going, and who they want to be doing that with. So because they've established that, they are now doing it, they're living it. And sometimes what happens for us is, well, I don't know what's holding me back. And that's where we go under the layers, which is what Marilyn is asking with all the questions she's had for today. And as we go through the weekend, other things that will come up. So this year has been tough. It's been about challenges. It's been massively about boundaries. And that's about respecting the boundaries that you have for yourself. Why have I put up with this? Why did I let someone trample over me? Why did I go along with it? I knew they wanted to do it, but I wanted to stay home. So there's all those sorts of dynamics that have been going on this year, but they've come up majorly to face you. Is this really what you want to do for the next 10 or 20 years? Because that's what we're looking at. Now, good news. Well, no, let me carry on with the retrospective for a second. We had some massive changes that went on through 2010, but it kicked off mainly in 2011, which was Marilyn's, I can't do this anymore, right, MBS was born. And she phoned me at whatever hour of the morning it was, which I'd obviously was sleeping in, because it's 9:05. Okay.
But I've been waiting since 3:30 that morning, so that's really great.
Yes, and it went into that flow of, would you be willing to, could I? And I said, yes, of course, happy to, yeah, count me in. Not knowing what on earth I was letting myself in for, but if it's to do with Marilyn, it's going to be fun, and it's going to be impactful, and it's going to make a difference to people's lives. 2012, and we had planet alignments that also shook all of us to our core. Now, we know how powerful the moon is. The moon controls our tides and the waters. What is water in us is our emotions. So it had an emotional effect on us. So from 2012, it's been a build-up. 2016, there was another big shift that occurred, where movements and tectonic plates within the planet itself, things were moving. So we were going also through an awful lot of earthquakes and things like that through 2012 all the way through up to 2016. And this 10-year, this decade, is what's been all about change and facing what we want to do. And this is the 9th year. It's the one prior to another 0. And whenever, like, you have we celebrate 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, if you're lucky, 90, you'll get a letter from the Queen. So we celebrate a naught birthday. We do the same with a decade. 2000, that was the biggest, triple naught was now added instead of being 19. It goes back to 0. So this is what's happening to us in 2019. This is the last opportunity to clear everything that's been an issue for you over this entire decade. So these challenges may have been sitting there at a very, very low level as we went into 2011, 2012, but as we're in 2019, it's like, ring in the bell, okay, last call. Before we get off the wagon of 2019, we're about to go into 2020. Anything that you want to shift or change and look at that you don't like in your life, deal with it while you're here. Look at it here. Allow us to help you get the results that you want. Now 2020, this is the magic. Oh, I can't share that one.
Well, you can say
No, I'm not
what
going
you
to share
like,
that. I'm going to say that.
What you like more.
Yeah, but I like saving stuff because then it becomes a surprise. Even better. So 2020, there is one word I'm going to give you that I think it's a good one because it's quite enticing. Fruition. Fruition. Now, depending on how they're, I see a very happy face over there. Thank you. That's. I get very excited when the seeds that I have planted start to flower, build, and grow. The walk through the woods, which is one of the processes I'm going to take to you, I would love you to guess what year I started to think about that or channel it.
Oh my God.
Any idea?
20 years ago.
Try 1982 was the first year I started to channel information on the walk through the woods process. 1987, courtesy of a lovely friend, David, who's took me through, and we did all sorts of stuff around it. And then I wrote the book. Did all the book, did all the words, and I thought, oh, I can't do the artwork, I'm not a professional artist, I'm not good enough. I have done, and I'm doing all the artwork for it. And that's because with Game of Life, Marilyn's saying to me, oh yes, great, well it's got to have cards. Really? And yes, and you have to sell them, but the pictures have to be your own. I then had 48 hours to come up with all the artwork for the Game of Life deck, which is like 89, 90 pictures. Okay, I can do that in 48 hours. Okay, well, I did. And as I progressed, I've got more and more into the artwork. I'm now helping another client with a series of books, and I'm doing the lead artist on that, and I'm going, really? Okay, this is cool. Walk through the woods. Then Marilyn says, what are you going to do this year? I said, oh, I've done the relationship deck, but the relationship deck is quite a different one. It's not got pictures to it per se, it's about the heart and just some words and stuff. So I thought, oh, and she said, you keep talking about walk through the woods, why don't you do that? So I said, okay. I said, I don't quite know how I'm going to do it. And she said, well, give me an element of it. So I did one element with her over the phone. Oh, that's fab, you should do that in the room. So I thought, well, I'm going to do 2 of the elements over these 2 days. Because the realization is when we talk about something, when we write it down, we bring it into the real world and it's no longer residing in our body. The minute you bring it out, the minute you write it down, and although there isn't, oh, there's some writing on there, but I'm not going to make it close enough that anyone can see, and I'm also not going to hold it long enough so that you can see or read the words. But the words are there. It's now in the real word, and it's the neurology, the unconscious mind is then going, that used to be in here. Now it's not in here, it's on there. And because it's on there, 10 to 1, I will be taking a lot of this stuff and burning it in my lovely sacred space barbecue burning machine in my back garden. Because when we shift and change energy, we can't create energy, we can't destroy energy, but what we can do is transmute it. And the object of the exercise, my belief is for this year, is everything that's an ouch or seriously uncomfortable, or I really don't like that, please stop doing it, into a, oh, that's lovely, oh yes, just here, oh yeah. to make life to the point where you really want to relax into it, enjoy it, be motivated by it, but truly have great fun. So 2020 is fruition, and I will tell you more about that a bit later. So I'm now going to hand back.
Now, before you move,
Oh, right. Okay.
because we didn't speak about this publicly, and you can just tell me yes or no.
Okay.
You know the thing that I decided we weren't going to talk about last year when you said 2019 will have a lot of insert word close to home.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
But we're at the end of it now, so do you want to say anything about that? Yes or no? It's up to you.
A brief touch.
Okay.
Very brief
Because
touch.
for me that was profound.
Yeah.
And it happened exactly the way you said it, and it kicked off in a way that I could not ignore it in January 2019, to the point I had to sit down
And think about
and
it.
just like,
Okay.
whoa, and then it's continued right up until the dinner we had with Sunny this week,
Yes.
where somebody spoke those words again, and I'd just been talking about it. I looked at them, I said, you know what I've just said to you? Did you hear what she just said? It's been crazy.
I'm
but
hoping
so
it's
spot on.
the passing off.
Yeah.
Yeah. There are, when people want to go back into spirit, when they've had enough of the earth plane, or often it's called when your time is right, then we will plan to go. 2019 has been like another recall. Those who are done and have finalised everything they need to learn, experience and enjoy on this planet, they're going to move and go back into spirit. But the message early on, which I think was around January, February, March, it kept coming in, it's going to be close to home. They're people that you know. So it's not just a random person that you think, oh, yes, didn't know them, but safe journey, have a good trip. Thank you very much. But much, much closer to home. So whether it's a relative, a cousin, a close friend, or friends of friends, or people that are in the media, like we've just lost 3, Jonathan Miller, we lost Clive James and Gary Rose, thank you. Those 3, but it's like they went as a collective, they went quite close together. Now the youngest of those was Gary Rose at 59, which is no age, not nowadays. When we lost Victoria Wood and Alan Rickman, to me it was like they were 63 and 64. Really? But we go through flows energetically with, okay, I've been in this life experience long enough, it's now time for me to move on. And 2019 has been one of those years where quite a few people are passing on. I lost my best friend this year, someone I've known for 30 years and was very, very, very close to. And she'd been on a journey of cancer for 12 years. And bless her heart, she's pain-free now and in a happy place. You may find that that has happened for you this year. And we're getting closer to the year, so often for the elderly, it is a time for passing. But it's that experience of, do I want more of this for another 10 or 20 years? Or am I complete? Am I fulfilled with this lifetime? So that's another thing that has happened throughout this year. Is there anything else?
No, I'm good.
Okay, that's fine then. Thank you ever so much. I'm going to hand you back to the lovely Marilyn Dudley.
Thank you. But yeah, it was crazy. Jean had said to me in the October last year, you know, because we always talk about, okay, what are the themes, what's coming up, what we're talking about. And she said, yeah, 2019, you probably experienced there's going to be a lot of death and it's going to feel close to home. And I was like, I was like, oh, that's interesting, okay. And we're not showing that on the workshop because you don't want to put ideas in people's head that they will then, you know, create all sorts of crazy stuff on. So we left that out completely. But then my year started off with a friend who committed suicide, and he was the, you know, modern day Savile Row version of Mr. Motivator. You know, if you had a yearbook, he would be the least likely to. Do you know what I mean? And I was like, if that isn't close to home, I don't know what is. And then there was a random plane crash, a group I'm in, somebody puts a picture up and says, oh, that's my brother, he was in that plane crash. So when the close to home bit came in so many ways where I didn't often always know the person, but when that person I did know, it was just really, and it's played out in so many ways this year. So I'm really looking forward to 2020 for that to be, you know, can somebody look at that and tell me what the temperature is on that now, please?
Yeah, it's still the same, I think.
Yeah, it's still just back in the time, isn't it?
It's still warm.
Roasting.
It's interesting how Gina mentioned about whether we think we're done or not.
Yeah.
Because I really did at one point think, do you know what, I
I'm not sure if I'm really meant to be here now. And then a little while later, I got really poorly, and I was rushed to the hospital and what have you. And when push came to shove, it's like, well, actually, I don't really want to go now. If it is my time, I will go,
Yeah.
and I shall either wake up tomorrow morning or I'm going right now, because I've never felt so peculiar in all my life. But I said, actually, do you know, my daughter's wedding's next summer. I think I'll stay for now. But it's really funny because you hearing it happening to other people, and again, I know somebody close to me who lost 3 close people, the whole family were wiped out.
Wow. But it is that close to home, so it's not necessarily in your immediate, but I lost track, because at first I started screenshotting them, so I thought, after about 50 screenshots, I'm like, I'm going to be wasting my time here. I'm just going to stop now, because it's just relentless. But it was just interesting watching how it played out based on what you said, and it pretty much, well, anybody who's had a reading review knows it's always spot on,
Exactly.
etc.
I'm going to go down to reception. And
Yeah, just
check
ask me to
this.
put the air conditioner on, heating
Yeah.
off, aircon on for a while.
Right.
Thank you. So just in summary for what Gina was kind of saying, the relationships, the emotions, career, business, work, financial challenges, it might have been for some. So if you don't feel like kind of you want it, was brought up for to kind of check. So it's time to surrender, release, resolve, and it's that whole thing about things that are making us uncomfortable, where we know we are out of alignment, and that's really been what kind of much of this year has been about. So the up and downs, twists and turns, and even in some respects it's almost like, I can hear Paula Abdul now, 1 step forward, 2 steps back, but it's almost that thing where people you might even have the sense you were going backwards, like, really? This again? But it's that whole thing about churning it and bringing it up for a resolution such that you can really kind of start clearing it now. So it's been an interesting one for sure. Now, for those of you who kind of don't know, a little bit about just kind of where I started, etc. But I really was had dreams of working in the city, even got a job with an investment bank, but was terrified of public speaking. But even all of those things, when we talk about the Dickens thing that we're going to do, when I look at all of that stuff and where I kind of started out, it's like, okay, had I not spent all those years being really quiet, really shy, lacking in confidence, very low self-esteem, it fed into what I do now as a coach. A lot of what I have to do is I'm watching people and I'm listening, and boy did I develop those skills. So when you are a wallflower, you spend a lot of time being invisible, people don't even know you're there, but you're listening. I got very adept with all the stuff that happened in my childhood at watching people, reading the signals, reading the signs, knowing when it was safe to go into that room, knowing when it was probably best to bypass that and be somewhere else and do something else. And those are all the skills that I use now, today, in all the coaching. And the reason I pretty much always use that same slide, I'm the little pink dot on stage, and you can see there are thousands of people there. That picture, sometimes even I look at it and go, was I really terrified of public speaking? Because it's just a little bit crazy when I look at the picture, because it was an aerial shot at Kensington Olympia. And it's like that for me is my reminder of how much your life can change and how far you can come. And then that became my signature when I got into what I do now, and people see me on stage and I say, well, I used to be terrified of public speaking, and I now work with other people who want to learn to speak and present and communicate with confidence. That was the hook, because people go, oh my God, well, if you can do that, from that start, anything is possible. And that was one of the things that propelled me into doing this, because it was such a dramatic change and such a dramatic turnaround. And when we look at the soul plan piece now, when I read to you the beginnings aspects of my soul plan, where I was in denial of spirituality, for example, and then you see and that's only a tiny list. There's probably about 20 different modalities now, so that's just a few of them up there. But when you look at the EFT, DNA theta healing, HUNA, emo trance, archetypal profiling, photo reading, NLP, hypnosis, timeline therapy, soul plan reading, that's a massive list. And when I read you the second part, actually I might even have it here to hand, 1 second. Oh yeah. Rather than theorising, let's put it into context. You can start looking at it from the perspective of your own soul plan. Let's see. Have I got my copy in? Yeah. Yes. Let me just give you a little taster, just so you can see what I mean. My worldly challenges: denial of spirituality, severely critical, self-loathing, perfectionist, feel alienated, insecure, must work to establish self in the spiritual. When you hear that description and you see that list, the two don't seem to be related at all. But I say to people, no, you're missing the point. The potential attributes of the 10-1, yin-yang balance, male-female balance, and the male-female balance didn't hit me till I was running a series of webinars. I think it was the Raising Your Money Vibration series a couple of months ago. I was like, hold on a minute, when I first got into doing coaching, because the first 9 years I did relationship coaching, 80% of my clients were men. And it came from a piece that I had in the Metro newspaper called Breaking Up the Easy Way. And the piece went out on the 4th of January, nobody was back at work yet, and I just moved into the place I live in now, came down and my phone was beeping and the messenger thing was full, and I thought, oh God, bloody Virgin Media, I thought they set the phone up wrong. And then I look at my emails and there's all these things saying about the article, the Metro. Just as I was about to look at that, my phone rang, and it was our then partner David, and he said, have you seen the Metro today? I went, no. He went, oh, you might want to have a look. I went, why, what? And he said, in those days we had fax. He said, I'll fax it to you. He faxed me the article, and then it started off by saying, when I first read Devonish's Guff, it sounded like New Age hocus pocus. A little bit of NLP, a little bit of hypnosis, a little bit of time designed to help you really. And I was like, oh my God, this is not going well. And I get to the end of the article, and it says, I don't know how she did it, but best of all, it was seamless with no effort on my part. No longer am I obsessing about Mark, I'm ticking things off my to-do list and yada, yada, yada. Then suddenly the penny drops. It's like, there's nothing wrong with my phone. It's full of messages from people wanting to book a session. And I look at the emails, and there's emails. And I got clients from that one article for 9 years. And the journalist then told me, they ran it in that day. It was a girly piece, the editor called it. So they just shoved it in on any day. 80% of the clients that came from that over that 9-year period were men. So now when I look at the male-female balance, I'm like, oh my God, totally makes sense. Do you know what I mean? So that's what I mean when you go back and look at your soul plan, you see it differently each time you look at it. So yin-yang balance, male-female balance, excellent healer. You know, the list is long and endless. Inventive, well, we all know how creative I can be because many of you have been on the receiving end of those creations. Power, many spiritual abilities, vocal expression, channel, possible service incarnation. So any of you who've got the 10-1 in your soul plan, everybody's now reaching to have a look. And I bought paper copies as well, unfortunately, not here, but I'll give you a link maybe. If you've got 10-1, and then the thing about being of service keeps showing up, that is where you can feel as though I'm here to do something, but your job partly is to find out what that is. But so when I read you the first part of my soul plan, that was me from the age of 0 to 32 when I got into personal development in the year 2000, and the worldly part of your soul plan is 0 to 30/35. So often you read it, it's a bit of a retrospective where you go, oh, actually that was me. Because you know, for me to contemplate committing suicide in September 2000, denial of spirituality, severely critical self-loathing, yep. Those are the things that kind of drive you to that edge, and so it's often retrospective for that beginning bit, and then you can see how it has played out, because when I look at that now, I'm like, yeah, that's totally me, but it wasn't until the age of 32. So I'm going to be asking you to look at your soul plan in a slightly different way. And the bit that made me laugh when I looked at this, like when I was teaching out at the retreat in Spain for the Cambio retreats bit, for my worldly talents, for example, possible challenges, victim of abuse, and right foot issues. As a child, I used to have an unexplained swelling of like the bone in my right ankle, and the one that I severely damaged in my 20s where I ripped the tendons, went over on it sideways, was the same ankle, and the one that I've twisted a few times, slipping on ice and falling between pavement slabs in Watford, guess what, is the right ankle. So it really, and again, much difficulty fitting in, but then when I step into the talents of that, pioneering, intuitive, spiritually open, adventurous, assertive, articulate, visionary, creative. So I'm now living more into the talents piece, but I wasn't always. So when we do the exercise with the soul plan, I'm going to be asking you to look at the challenges. Are there any that are still up for you? You go, actually, do you know what? That does feel like it's holding me back. And when you go through the whole thing, I'm going to be asking you to really look at of the potential attributes. It doesn't matter whether it sits in the worldly talents, worldly goals, spiritual, whatever. You might pick one and go, I really love to activate that one. So if I wasn't already speaking, because it keeps coming up in different ways, articulate, sounds good. Vocal expression, they're saying slightly different, but they're saying the same thing. So if I hadn't figured it out by now, when I go and look at my soul plan, I keep seeing the thing about vocal expression, speaking up, blah, blah, I'd be like, maybe one of the things I'm here to do on this earth is to speak. And so I'm going to be asking you to look at your soul plan slightly differently this time, as we kind of, break it down and go through that. I love, all this, the writing stuff. I've been doing that since about 2004. Absolutely love it. I was saying to Gina, my day on Friday was set. I knew exactly what I needed to do. First email I got, we're writing a piece for people management about technology and lag when you go back to work, the challenges that can bring and how people can get left behind if they've been off on maternity leave, etc. Got your name from another journalist, could you write a piece for us? Oh, by the way, I need it by midday. They really do want things yesterday, and so with all the photo reading stuff and all the rest of it, I have to call on those skills. So I wanted to say yes, but I already had notes on Thursday, wasn't it? Thursday, but I didn't have plans. My morning was set, but I didn't have clients. If I had clients, I'd have to say no. So I was like, okay, let's push mold, just get the article done, and let's get to it. But for somebody who was quiet and shy and didn't think she had anything to say, I could never have done that. That again is a tiny smattering of the magazines over the years. I actually have lost track, so I'm going to have to get better now at saying to the journalist, can you send me a link to the piece, please, or let me know when the magazine is out so I can buy a copy, yada, yada, yada. But all of that, again, even though a lot of it's about vocal expression, my words now end up in print. So really be creative in all the ways that when whatever speaks to you on your soul plan, go, okay, how else can I guess the way you might say is make that manifest in the world and bring it to life, etc. And for me, it's all about transformation. So when Dr. Paul Sheely got in touch and said, there's a book project. Tony Robbins is in. Now the late Dr. Wayne Dyer is in. Brian Tracy is in. Are you in? I said, what's the project? Stories of Transformation. I'm like, I'm in. I didn't really need to hear anything more than that. And for me, it's always been about how do you change, how do you transform, and how do you kind of take your life to a different place. So that book is a collection of stories where all of us have written about how we went from very challenging times and what did we do to change and transform to live a different life. And for me, the crux of what I've always been doing is that, and the logo that has been the logo since year 2001, the water drop, that's always been what it's about, almost like being a catalyst, and then everything ripples out from there. So that's moi in a nutshell. I always have this one pretty much on every training. One of my favourite sayings when I went out to Hawaii to study Huna, think not that all wisdom is in your school. So Gina and I will be sharing things that I happen to think are the best things since sliced bread. They've worked for me, they've worked for my clients, and that's not the only way to do the things we're talking about. There are probably a million and one other ways. So if what we're sharing with you resonates, that's great. Take it on board, do it, use it. If it doesn't, there'll be something else that maybe will resonate. But, we think it's great, and it's not the only way to do things. So we're going to start with, we're going to start with a little warm-up of this, then we're going to have a break, and then Gina's going to do her first segment. And this is what I call my Charles Dickens piece. And I've been quoting this to my clients for years, this is coming up to decades. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. Because when I look at some of the situations I found myself in, one of the things I said very recently, and I'll say it again later when we do the exercise, one of the best things that ever happened to me was my partner having an affair. And me kind of contemplating suicide, because that was the rock bottom point. But when I look at what came out as a result of that, it was the absolute worst of times. If you'd come to me in that moment and said, oh my God, this will be an amazing, I would have probably punched your lights out. But now when I look back, it was definitely the worst of times, but it's absolutely the best of times because so much has come from that. So I want you to just start thinking about, for you, what has been something that, and you might be going through it now, it might be one of your worst of times, or you might be thinking back, what have been some of the worst times for you? And as we go through, particularly with the silver linings exercise, you're going to be thinking about what were some of the best times and what were some of the things that came from that. And there's the full piece. If you look it up online, you can read it. But when I was reading the full passage of where that comes from, it reminded me of Huna, that kind of dichotomy triangle, because he's writing, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom and it was the age of foolishness. It was the epoch of belief, it was the epoch of incredulity. It was the season of light, it was the season of darkness. It was the spring of hope, it was the winter of despair. Those are polar opposites. And one of the things that happens when you've got that Huna triangle, they say that when you can hold those two opposing forces, there's then what I call the quantum collapse, where you get back to that neutral point. So that statement, and when we look at the Access Consciousness Clearing statement as well, right and wrong, good and bad, exactly the same premise. So he probably, of course, he wasn't thinking about these things when he wrote that, because they didn't even, well, Huna was around, but not that he would have known of. But it really is that. It's about that dichotomy, that break, that mix. And so I'm going to be asking you to think of what are those polar opposite situations and scenarios. And then we're going to be helping you to see the balance in there, and also kind of clearing the things that it's been about. So just start thinking about this as we kind of go into break. We'll come back later, do it as an exercise. So you're thinking about, have there been ups and downs this year? I think from the nodding of heads as we've gone through, there most certainly have been. Have you seen any of the silver linings yet? It might be that you're still in the thick of it, you're like, I have no idea what's going on. Or you might go, actually, do you know what? As I think about it now, so I'm going to just get you to start thinking about that one. I'm going to ask you to think about what has been the biggest up and the seemingly worst down in the past 12 months. And where are you now on the curve? Where are you on the curve? And just start mulling it over, start thinking about it, and we'll come back to it. And for me, I wasn't sure, I was like, because I think this is my theme for the day, and I wasn't sure. I was like, oh, is this really the theme? Is this what I want to do? And I was like, all right, universe, if it is, let me know. If it's not, show me something different. This is just a snapshot of what happened after I put that question out there. I asked that question on Friday last week. The next day, someone posted this post from 7 years ago. Do you see any similarities? This image I put on the slide on the Friday.
Yeah.
On the Saturday, I did that 7 years ago. I giggled to myself and went, all right, maybe game on, but I have got 3 times convinced, so many of you who know me know that. 3 days later, I clicked on a random article. It's Tina Turner's 80th birthday this week. There was a piece that she wrote, she says, good came out of bad. I was laughing to myself, and the whole piece is here, but she's talking about good came out of bad and the joy that has come out of some of the unhappy things. Exactly the same premise. So now I'm laughing, going, okay, very cool. And then 4 days later, I clicked on a random piece, a video from Prince Harry, and I just thought, clicked on it because Sonny and I have been talking about royal family. We spent the day at Windsor, so we're talking about Harry, we're talking about Meghan Markle. So I click on the video randomly. This is one of the pieces that it said. It says, Harry's mother taught him to find the apparently for good within the bad, the opportunity for good within the bad. I'm like, all right, I'm done. We're good. It's okay, I have got the message. You know what I mean? It just keeps coming. So it's all about that. So I want you to start thinking about the ups and downs, what have been some of the seemingly worst times. Start thinking about what did you get from that. Have you started to see the silver linings? And as we go through the exercises for the rest of the day, it will be all good. So we are going to have a quick 10-minute break. Stretch your legs. If you haven't yet found the bathroom, you need a reminder, straight out this door, diagonally opposite, go through the one door. Ladies are on the left, whether there's no gents here today, but that's on the right. Water machine is there. Help yourself to the nibbles, etc. If you need a coffee, tea, there's a coffee shop in the bar area. So we'll have a quick 10-minute break, and then Gina will take you through her first segment.
Would you please put it back on the Charles Dickens
quote.
The full quote.
Yeah, the full one.
I shall
Thank
leave
you.
that there. Your
Thank
10
you.
minutes starts now.
I know. I'm going to go back downstairs and check that she has got it all in. Because I do not understand.
Thank you for watching. Thank you for joining us.